The cool evening air, usually a welcome respite after a demanding day, suddenly crackled with a familiar, unwelcome tension. Marcus Thorne, the state's lead civil rights investigator, was just 2 blocks from his home, lost in thought about a complex case he was building, a case involving systemic police misconduct in a nearby district. He was a man whose quiet authority commanded respect, whose career was dedicated to upholding the very principles now being violated in front of him. But to Officer Miller, whose patrol car had just screeched to a halt, blocking Marcus's path, and Officer Jenkins, already unbuttoning his holster, Marcus was just another black man walking in what they deemed the wrong neighborhood. For more gripping tales from the hidden corners of justice and beyond, subscribe to Dark Side of Luna, where the shadows hold the truth. Hey, you, Officer Miller barked, his voice sharp and aggressive. Where are you going in such a hurry? We've had reports of suspicious individuals casing houses in this area. You fit the description. Marcus stopped, his hands calmly raised to show he posed no threat. Officer, I live right down the street. I'm simply walking home. His voice was measured, betraying no fear, only a quiet dignity. He was well versed in these encounters. Don't get smart with me, pal. Officer Jenkins cut in, stepping closer. ID. And what's in the briefcase? Looks a little heavy. Maybe some stolen goods? His eyes swept over Marcus's expensive suit with thinly veiled suspicion. Marcus frowned slightly. You don't have probable cause for a search or to demand my ID. I have committed no crime. He looked directly at Miller, his gaze unwavering. And I assure you, you are making a grave mistake. Miller scoffed, moving closer, his hand resting on Marcus's arm. Oh, a legal scholar, huh? Thinks he knows the law better than us? That's resisting, pal. And if you don't cooperate, things are going to get a lot worse. He tightened his grip, pulling Marcus's arm behind his back. I am not resisting, Marcus stated, his voice firm despite the pain. You are initiating an unlawful arrest. Unlawful, huh? Jenkins laughed, a cold, derisive sound. We'll see about that. You're coming with us. Let's see how much of a big shot you are down at the precinct. The cold click of handcuffs echoed in the quiet street as Miller expertly locked them around Marcus's wrists. He was roughly shoved towards the back of the patrol car. As he was pushed into the back seat, his briefcase, which he'd been holding tightly, slipped from his grasp and fell to the pavement. It sprang open, and from inside tumbled out a thick, leather-bound folder. On its cover, clearly visible in the streetlight's glow, were the embossed gold words: Office of the State Attorney General, Civil Rights Division. Officer Miller's jaw went slack, his entire body freezing. His eyes, wide with terror, darted from the embossed folder to Marcus Thorne's calm, unyielding face. He had just handcuffed the very man whose office investigated police misconduct across the state. State Attorney General's office, he stammered, his voice a pathetic squeak. Civil Rights Division? You're him. Officer Jenkins, equally stunned, took a step back, bumping into the patrol car. The casual arrogance that had defined their patrol evaporated, replaced by a cold, gut-wrenching dread. They recognized the name now, the quiet but formidable reputation of Marcus Thorne, the man who brought down corrupt officials and reformed troubled precincts. Marcus, still handcuffed, slowly pushed himself up from where he'd been shoved, his eyes fixed on Miller. Yes, officer, he stated, his voice steady and cold, cutting through the stunned silence. Marcus Thorne, and you have just unlawfully arrested, assaulted, and racially profiled the state's lead civil rights investigator on federal time while he was walking home. On his own street, Miller's face drained of all color. He fumbled frantically for the handcuff keys. Mr. Thorne, sir, I had no idea. It was a mistake. A complete misunderstanding. You fit a description. We were just doing our job. He tried to release the cuffs, his hands trembling so violently he nearly dropped the keys. Marcus pulled his wrists back, a subtle but firm gesture. Your job, officer, does not include racial profiling, harassment, or fabricating charges. Your job is to uphold the law, not violate it. He then looked at Jenkins. And yours, officer? Jenkins stammered, We were just following protocol. Captain Hayes, He always tells us to be proactive in these neighborhoods. Clean up the streets. Get the numbers up. His words tumbled out in a desperate attempt to deflect blame, inadvertently exposing a deeper rot. He said to assert authority, especially with. He trailed off, realizing what he was admitting. Marcus's eyes hardened. Get the numbers up? So you're admitting to an unofficial quota system designed to target specific communities? He didn't wait for a response. I'm also aware, Officer Miller, of at least 3 previous complaints against you regarding excessive force and discriminatory stops in this very precinct, all of which were mysteriously unsubstantiated by internal affairs. He looked directly at Jenkins. And Officer Jenkins, your file shows you've been transferred twice in the last year, always after a surge in community complaints that never led to formal disciplinary action. This isn't just a protocol problem. This is a pattern of systemic negligence protected by leadership. Miller and Jenkins stared, horrified. Their desperate attempts to justify their actions had just confirmed everything Marcus Thorne had been investigating for months. The walls of their carefully constructed impunity were crumbling around them. Justice Thorne, now free from the handcuffs and rubbing his wrists, reached for his cell phone. I'm calling the chief of police directly, and then the attorney general. You two are not just losing your badges tonight. You're exposing a culture. Minutes later, the streets swarmed with squad cars, but the atmosphere was dramatically different. Police Chief Arthur Sterling, a formidable figure with a stern demeanor, emerged from an unmarked vehicle, his face a mask of barely contained fury. He took one look at his 2 officers, cuffed by their own colleagues under Marcus Thorne's calm, commanding gaze, and knew the depths of the disaster. Mr. Thorne, Chief Sterling began, his voice tight with controlled anger, I demand an explanation. Why are my officers being detained? He sized up Marcus, his posture radiating challenge. Marcus, now released from his own handcuffs by a nervous junior officer, simply held up his badge. Chief Sterling, he stated, his voice resonating with authority. Your officers, Miller and Jenkins, have just engaged in unlawful arrest, aggravated assault, and clear racial profiling. This isn't a local matter anymore. This is a federal inquiry into systemic civil rights violations, and your department is at its center. He then calmly detailed Miller's aggression, Jenkins's complicity, and their panicked admissions of proactive policing quotas handed down from Captain Hayes and the consistent bearing of complaints. Chief Sterling's face hardened. He immediately placed Miller and Jenkins on administrative leave, their badges and weapons confiscated on the spot. But beneath his stern facade, Marcus sensed a deeper fear. This wasn't just about 2 rogue officers. It was about protecting a far larger secret. Marcus's investigation, now expanded with a dedicated team from the State Attorney General's Civil Rights Division and discreet support from the FBI, quickly connected the dots beyond Captain Hayes. The proactive policing quotas weren't just a departmental initiative. They were a direct mandate from Mayor Thomas Harding and Chief Sterling, operating under the guise of an urban revitalization initiative. This initiative, publicly touted as a plan to bring new businesses and residents to struggling downtown districts, secretly relied on creating a perception of rising crime and disorder. Police were incentivized to increase arrests for minor offenses, particularly among Black and Brown communities, making neighborhoods seem unsafe and driving down property values, thereby facilitating cheap land acquisition for politically connected developers. The arrests were not about public safety. They were about displacement for profit orchestrated by the highest levels of city power. As Marcus's team meticulously traced the financial kickbacks between Mayor Harding's campaign and the implicated developers and cross-referenced police arrest data with property acquisition records, they faced increasing obstruction from City Hall. Files went missing. Witnesses became uncooperative. The stakes escalated dramatically. Then an unexpected ally emerged, Councilman James Holloway, a quiet, principled Black American member of the city council, who had been increasingly uneasy with the mayor's aggressive revitalization tactics. Holloway had secretly kept meticulous notes and recordings of private council meetings where Mayor Harding and Chief Sterling implicitly, and sometimes explicitly, discussed using police tactics to encourage turnover in specific districts. He revealed a critical phone call where Chief Sterling, under pressure from the mayor, confirmed the existence of unconventional metrics for arrests, directly linking the police department's actions to the mayor's urban development agenda. Councilman Holloway, risking his career and safety, brought this evidence to Marcus Thorne, providing the crucial, irrefutable link that tied the mayor and chief directly to the systemic civil rights abuses. The battle shifted from the streets to the highest echelons of city government. Mayor Harding and Chief Sterling, cornered and desperate, launched a ferocious counterattack, attempting to discredit Marcus, smear Councilman Holloway, and even subtly threaten their families. But Marcus Thorne, a man who had faced down giants before, remained unyielding. He had been arrested without cause, but he would ensure that justice, for himself and for every citizen terrorized by this corrupt system, would be served. The political temperature in the city reached a boiling point. Mayor Thomas Harding and Police Chief Arthur Sterling, cornered by the mounting federal investigation and the damning evidence provided by Councilman James Holloway, were desperate. They launched a full-scale counteroffensive, not just through media smears, but with overt attempts to discredit the federal probe itself. They called a massive mandatory city unity rally in the downtown square, framing it as a show of strength against federal overreach and biased investigations. Mayor Harding intended to use the rally to publicly laud Chief Sterling, dismiss Marcus Thorne's efforts as politically motivated, and paint his administration as victims of a smear campaign. Justice Miller, however, anticipated their move. He knew Harding's ego would lead him to a public spectacle. Working with Councilman Holloway and a network of courageous community activists, Marcus meticulously planned his counter. As Mayor Harding, with Chief Sterling by his side, began his fiery speech at the packed rally, denouncing the unfounded accusations, a massive jumbotron screen behind him, usually reserved for city announcements, suddenly flickered. It switched from Mayor Harding's image to a live feed. On screen, Eleanor Hayes, the previously anonymous administrative assistant who had given crucial evidence in another major corruption case, appeared. Her face was calm, resolute, as she began to speak into a microphone, her voice amplified across the square. Mayor Harding claims innocence, she stated, her words clear and cutting, but I have personally witnessed and documented his directives. I have seen the ledgers. I have heard the conversations. She then began to systematically detail Mayor Harding's financial ties to the implicated developers and his direct orders to Chief Sterling regarding arrest quotas and urban revitalization tactics, all live, in front of the assembled crowd and every major news network. As the crowd erupted in shocked murmurs, Mayor Harding and Chief Sterling frantically tried to cut the feed, but it was being broadcast from a secure, off-site location, part of Marcus Thorne's meticulous plan. Then, as Eleanor Hayes concluded, a second live feed appeared on the jumbotron. This one showed a subdued Captain Hayes, Chief Sterling's direct subordinate, in a secure federal interview room. In a clear, recorded confession, Captain Hayes admitted to implementing the performance metrics system under Chief Sterling's direct orders. He then revealed the most chilling detail. They didn't just incentivize arrests, they had developed a subtle data algorithm, implemented by a private contractor, that systematically flagged and deprioritized emergency calls for service from the undesirable neighborhoods simultaneously experiencing the surge in minor arrests. This created artificial crime spikes and justified even more aggressive policing, all while making residents in those areas feel abandoned and unsafe. The goal was to destabilize the communities, making them easier targets for the mayor's development schemes. The revelation of this deliberate neglect of public safety, putting citizens' lives at risk for political and financial gain, was the final, absolute blow. The crowd in the square erupted in a furious roar, their cheers turning to boos, then outright demands for arrest. Mayor Harding and Chief Sterling stood frozen, their faces contorted in terror, their carefully constructed kingdom of lies collapsing around them in a public spectacle of monumental proportions. The mayor's city unity rally became the stage for his and Chief Sterling's spectacular public downfall. As the damning footage of the urban watchman and Captain Hayes' confession played across the jumbotron, exposing the systematic neglect of 911 calls, the roar of the betrayed crowd became a thunderous demand for justice. Mayor Thomas Harding and Chief Arthur Sterling, utterly exposed, were arrested live on stage, their power crumbling before the eyes of a shocked nation. The arrest triggered an unprecedented wave of federal indictments. Justice Secretary Randall Thorne's team, armed with the irrefutable evidence from Elias Thorne's undercover mission, Eleanor Hayes's brave leaks, and Councilman James Holloway's secret recordings, systematically dismantled the entire corrupt network. The trials were a landmark in American jurisprudence, televised nationwide, laying bare the chilling precision with which powerful city officials had exploited public safety for private gain. Mayor Thomas Harding and Police Chief Arthur Sterling were convicted on all counts, including racketeering, conspiracy to commit voter suppression, and criminal negligence resulting in endangerment of public safety. Their sentences were severe, signaling an unwavering commitment to accountability. Officers Reyes and Gomez, along with every member and leader of the Special Enforcement Unit, faced equally harsh convictions for civil rights violations, assault, and obstruction of justice. The real estate developers complicit in the scheme faced staggering fines and lengthy prison terms. But the justice extended far beyond individual convictions. Under the direct oversight of Justice Secretary Randall Thorne and guided by the profound insights of Elias Thorne, the city embarked on an absolute, once-in-a-lifetime transformation of its public safety and governance structures, police department overhaul. Chief Sterling's top brass were purged, and the entire department underwent a radical restructuring. The performance metrics quota system and the insidious 911 call deprioritization algorithm were permanently abolished. Community-led policing, a new police chief, vetted by community leaders, was appointed. Comprehensive, mandatory training in de-escalation, empathy, and working with diverse populations was implemented. Patrols were decentralized, fostering genuine community engagement. Independent oversight, new, empowered civilian review boards with full investigative and subpoena power were established, ensuring transparency and accountability for every officer. Restored trust in emergency services. Federal funding was secured to upgrade 911 systems, guaranteeing equitable response times for all neighborhoods, irrespective of demographics. Urban revitalization for all. The mayor's original urban revitalization initiative was entirely reshaped. Instead of displacement for profit, it became a genuine community reinvestment program, directing funds into affordable housing, job creation, and essential services for all residents, especially those previously targeted. The Market Street, where Elias Thorne was initially humiliated, became a national symbol of resilience. A grand public art installation, The Unbroken Spirit, was erected there, celebrating the dignity of all citizens and the power of truth. Elias Thorne, the Medal of Honor recipient, became a living testament to quiet courage and unwavering integrity. He took on a prominent, official advisory role in the Department of Justice, traveling the country to oversee police reform initiatives and ensure that communities everywhere could trust those sworn to protect them. Eleanor Hayes and Councilman James Holloway were celebrated as heroes, their brave actions crucial to dismantling the corrupt network. The city, once divided by fear and injustice, emerged as a beacon of unity and equitable governance. Its painful reckoning led to a profound healing, proving that true justice, when pursued by those with unwavering moral conviction, can transform a community and redefine the very meaning of public service. For more gripping tales from the hidden corners of justice and beyond, subscribe to Dark Side of Luna, where the shadows hold the truth.